How's it? Welcome back. So I had a great question come in from one of my longtime supporters on YouTube, Couchy, and he wrote, do you have lucid dreams easier if you fall asleep from hypnagogia? And so my initial thought towards the question was no, but then also my second thought was, how would I really be able to tell? Because most of the time when I'm going to sleep, I will typically make it to at least the early stages of hypnagogia, just because it's part of my typical going to sleep process. And normally even past the really early stages of hypnagogia, I'll normally make it to the point to where I'm seeing like a flash of an image or something pop up. But even when I make it past that and get to the full-on moving type of imagery, most of the time at some point in that process while I'm still in stage 1 of sleep, I'll get wrapped up in the narrative of what I'm seeing and lose my lucidity and basically just fall asleep unconscious, as we typically do. But I think another way you can kind of look at this question is, do you have lucid dreams easier if you make it all the way through hypnagogia, and you enter into the next stage of sleep? So at that point, I would think, yeah, I mean, certainly it would, without a doubt, increase the chances of you getting loose from that point on. But I think it would really only affect the current sleep cycle you're in. So what would be crucially important to this is, doing it with something like Wake Back to Bed, or trying to go to sleep initially at night when you're really sleep deprived. So it increases the chances of you going from these later stages of sleep, skipping stage 3, 4 deep sleep stuff, and going directly into REM, where most of the time when we go to sleep at night, we'll go light stage of sleep into 3, 4 deep sleep, and then pop out into REM after the fact. And I think, maybe it would help in that scenario still yet too, but I think really if you want it to help, you really got to go from, light stage of sleep directly into REM. And even when it comes to having wilds, some people might think because I can get to this hypnagogic state so consistently that I'd be having wilds all the time. But real full-on wilds, and what I actually consider a wild to me personally, is I get the cool body high of being sucked into the image and stuff like that. There is times where I'll be in a dream, I'll wake up a little bit out of it, be like, oh shit, I'm dreaming, then fall asleep, pass through hypnagogia, and enter into REM like that, and essentially have a wild. But what happens the extreme majority of the time when I do it like that, I don't get that cool body high sensation. It's kind of just like a slow melding of me playing back the dream in my head, too committed to memory. It's kind of popping up here, and the next thing I know, I'm in the dream, and it doesn't have that really awesome body high that typically will only happen to me if I have this whole wild experience when I'm initially going to sleep for the first time. I'm going from full-blown 100% awake, entering into the stage 1 of sleep hypnagogia, getting lucky enough to skip deep sleep, and entering into REM. When I pull that off, that is the best, and that really only happens to me several times a year or something like that, so it's not really all that common. I do think also, though, that being able to fall asleep from hypnagogia or get the hypnagogia lucidly or consciously aware, I do think that indirectly helps you have, it helps your lucid dreaming practice. I don't know if it helps you have it so much, where, like I say all the time, when you're playing around in these liminal dream states, lucidly aware, you're working out a lot of the same mental muscles that you would be when you get lucid within a REM style dream. And if nothing else, you're practicing walking that fine line between putting forth too much effort and too much conscious awareness, which causes you to wake up, and then not getting so wrapped up in the narrative that you lose all your lucidity and then fall asleep, as we typically do. And I think it's even like a more fine line to walk when you're in the hypnagogic state, because you're so close to waking. Any little bit of wiggle room there and you'll just full on wake up, as opposed to when you're in a really deep or stable dream and you start putting forth too much effort, you can feel and see the dream starting to break down, which gives you an opportunity to re-solidify, do a dream stabilization technique, and keep that dream going. So there's just more wiggle room there, as opposed to when you're in the hypnagogic state, it's kind of a little bit too much, you wake up, a little bit too little, and you get wrapped up in the narrative and you lose your lucidity. But really great question. Thanks for dropping it, and that's it. Until the next video, keep your lucid dreaming practice legit.